Once upon a time, there was a young man named Rahul. He was a bright and ambitious person who always worked hard to achieve his goals. However, he had one weakness. He loved to talk. Rahul was known for his silver tongue, and his ability to persuade people with his words. One day, Rahul decided to seek the wisdom of Gautam Buddha, the great spiritual leader. He traveled a long way to meet Buddha, and ask for his guidance. When Rahul finally met Buddha, he asked him, "Great Buddha, please teach me how to become wise like you." Buddha smiled and said, "To become wise, you must first learn when to be silent." Rahul was confused. "But Buddha, I thought words were the key to success. How come being silent helped me become wise?" Buddha replied, "My dear Rahul, there are two situations in life where you must be silent. If you learn to do this, you will gain great wisdom." "What are those two situations?" asked Rahul. Buddha replied, "The first situation is when you were angry. When you were angry, your mind is clouded by negative emotions. Your words will only add fuel to the fire. You must learn to be silent, and let your anger dissipate before you speak." Rahul nodded in agreement. "I understand, great Buddha. What is the second situation?" Buddha replied, "The second situation is when someone else is angry. When someone is angry, they are not in a receptive state of mind. Your words will only fall on deaf ears. You must learn to be silent and wait until they are ready to listen." Rahul was impressed by Buddha's words. He knew that he had a lot to learn from the wise sage. He decided to stay with Buddha and learn from him over the next few months. Rahul learned a great deal from Buddha. He learned how to meditate and quiet his mind. He learned how to see the world with compassion and empathy. He learned how to be mindful and present in each moment. One day, Rahul was walking in the forest when he heard a commotion. He saw a group of people gathered around a man who was shouting and waving his arms. The man was clearly angry about something. Rahul remembered Buddha's words and decided to be silent. He watched as the man ranted and raved, but he didn't say anything. He waited patiently until the man had exhausted himself. After a few minutes, the man calmed down and looked at Rahul. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked. Rahul smiled and replied, "Because I knew that your anger was cloud in your mind. I didn't want to say anything that would make the situation worse." The man was taken back. He had never met someone like Rahul before. He was used to people either fighting back or running away. He looked at Rahul with newfound respect. "You are a wise man," he said. "I wish I could be like you." Rahul smiled and replied, "You can be, if you learn to be silent when you are angry, and when someone else is angry." The man nodded in agreement and walked away deep in thought. From that day on, Rahul became known as a wise and respected person in his community. He used his words carefully and only spoke when he had something valuable to say. People came to him for advice and guidance, and he was always happy to help. Years passed, and Rahul all grew old. He knew that his time on earth was coming to an end. One day, he decided to visit Butler one last time. When he arrived at Buddha's temple, he saw that many people had gathered to hear Buddha speak. Rahul sat down among the crowd and listened as Buddha spoke about the importance of mindfulness and compassion. When the talk was over, Rahul approached Buddha and bowed respectfully. Buddha looked at Rahul with a smile. "Welcome back, my dear friend. It is good to see you again." Rahul returned the smile. "Thank you, great Buddha. I have come to thank you for teaching me the wisdom of being silent in two situations. It has changed my life and helped me become a better person." Buddha nodded in understanding. "I am glad to hear that, my friend, but remember, the wisdom comes from within you. I only showed you the way." Rahul bowed respectfully. "I understand, great Buddha, but I will always be grateful to you for guiding me." Buddha smiled and replied, "You have learned well, my friend. Now, it is time for you to pass on your wisdom to others." Rahul nodded in agreement. "Yes, great Buddha. I will do my best to share what I have learned with others." And so Rahul spent the rest of his days sharing the wisdom of being silent in two situations with anyone who would listen. Became known as a great teacher and mentor. And his words touched the hearts of many. When Rahul passed away, his legacy lived on. His teachings were passed down from generation to generation. And his words continue to inspire people for centuries to come. And so, the lesson of being silent in two situations brought to Rohu by Gautam Buddha became a guiding principle for countless people around the world. It reminded them to be mindful of their words, and to use them wisely with kindness and compassion. As the years went by, the teachings of Rahul spread far and wide, inspiring many people to live a more mindful and compassionate life. His words became the basis for many books, and his teachings were studied by people all over the world. One day, a young man named Sujit stumbled upon the teachings of Roku. He was going through a difficult time in his life, and was searching for guidance. The words of Rohu spoke to him in a way that nothing else had before. Sujit decided to seek out the teachings of Rohu in person. He traveled to the monastery where Wilhel had once studied under Gautam Buddha. When he arrived, he was greeted by a kind and wise monk who showed him around the monastery. As they walked, Sujit saw the places where Rahul had once meditated and studied. He felt a deep sense of reverence for the man who had taught him so much. The monk noticed Sujit's reverence and asked him, "What is it that draws you to the teachings of Rohu?" Sujit replied, "His words speak to me in a way that nothing else has before. They remind me to be mindful of my words, and to use them with kindness and compassion. I want to learn more about him and his teachings." The monk smiled and replied, "You have come to the right place. Rahul's teachings are still studied and followed here. I will introduce you to the other monks, and they can help you learn more." And so Sujit spent the next few months studying the teachings of Rahul, and practicing mindfulness and compassion. He learned the importance of being silent in two situations. Chester's Roku had before him. When Sujit left the monastery, he felt like a new person. He had a deeper understanding of himself and the world around him. He knew that the teachings of Roku would guide him for the rest of his life. Years went by, and Sujit became a teacher himself. He shared the teachings of Rohu with anyone who would listen, just as Rahul had done before him. He touched the lives of countless people, inspiring them to live a more mindful and compassionate life. And so the teachings of Rohu lived on, passed down from generation to generation. They continue to inspire people to be mindful of their words, and to use them with kindness and compassion. And the world became a better place because of it. This is Courage to Act Motivation Stories.